Alright, let round 2 begin. I would like to play first. This hand's decent. Kind of illustrates the weakness of Augur of Skulls, though. They're pretty bad in multiples. I did go down to 3 to play the fourth one of these guys, the Gitu Slinger. That's funny. If that's the fourth Gitu Slinger, then that means this hand could have been 3 Augur of Skulls. We are going to keep it because we're on the play, and Augur of Skulls gets a lot of value on the play. Even against aggro decks, Augur of Skulls is usually good on the play, because they won't have time to clear out their hands. The other Augur, if it turns out he is playing aggro, we can just save and use as a late game regenerator. But if you have 3 lands and a Gitu Slinger and an Unearth, generally you don't want to mulligan that hand. That is a lot of value in these 2 cards right here. So we will wait on my opponent. I will also mention that I am cooking, so if you hear me disappear for a few minutes at a time, I'm just trying to get dinner, y'all. Alright. If you survive a slinger attack, the slinger wished you to live. So true. My slingers wish only for the death of everything they target. This card's really good, by the way. I guess this is as good a time as any to talk about the changes that I made. I cut a main deck Augur of Skulls because I felt like 4 was too many, and the deck does need some 2-drops, but Augur of Skulls is kind of a mediocre 2-drop because he doesn't really do much. It is nice to get the Mind Rot effect early on, but in the late game he's not very useful. His regeneration is expensive, and I usually want to hold up mana for other things. I pretty much sided in the 4th Gitu Slinger all the time, so I just decided to make it a main deck card. In keeping with the idea of getting as much value as possible out of every card in the deck, I decided to go down on the number of wrench mines in the sideboard. I did have 3 wrench mines, and they're really good, and in paper those would be Hymns to Torak. Actually, these would probably be Hymns to Torak, and those would be Augur of Skulls in the side. But Hymn to Torak is not a common online, so you can't play it. The Wrench Mine is good against things like Tron, where they kind of need all their cards early and are constantly trying to reload their hand because you can just grind away at them. But I felt like something like Cathari Bomber, which is a 2/2 flyer that for 3 that unearths for 5, and when it hits them, you sacrifice it and make 2 tokens, 2 1/1 Goblin tokens. I felt like against matches like the mono blue decks or even like blue splash white, that gives you a little bit of extra power, and it's still pulling cards out of their hand because they have to counter it. You know, if they want to counter it or burn it, they have to do that, and then they have to deal with it unearthed, and unearthed can't be countered. So that's just a way that I'm going to be looking for some value. Still trying to play the long game with them a little bit, but instead of just being all in on the hand disruption plan and maybe top decking things like Wrench Mind or Blightning or even Augur of Skulls late game, hopefully we have a little bit more pop in our late game. So I cut 2 of the 3 Wrench Minds to run a couple of Cathari Bombers. I guess I'm running 2 Wrench Minds because one of the Cathari Bombers went for the space opened up, the space vacated in the sideboard by moving Gitu Slinger to the main deck. Talk a little bit about Unearth. Unearth is really the card that makes this whole deck tick, because everything that's a creature in this deck costs 3 or less, except for the 1 copy of Okiba Gang Shinobi. So basically in our deck, this is a reanimate for 1 mana. It also cycles, which is really good because sometimes people play Graveyard Hate and you can just get another card. Or sometimes there's nothing in your graveyard to unearth, or you get mana screwed or something like that, and then unearth is really useful. So gonna go get my dinner while my opponent is making his decisions. So we'll be right back.